Okay, everyone, huge Final Cut Pro news. All of us in the Final Cut Pro community pretty much freaking out that Apple has teased out two new features, one directly and one that if you zoom in on the window, you can see what that other new feature is. We're of course excited to know what's going to happen with Final Cut Pro for iPad and the Final Cut Camera app as the family of Final Cut apps continue to develop across the Apple Silicon lineup and the iPhone and iPad lineup. So yeah, exciting stuff. Let's get into it. I still don't have my live stream set up fully realized, so that's why I haven't gone live with this news about Final Cut Pro and whatever this update's going to be, whether it's 10.8.2, 10.9, or what I hope to be Final Cut Pro 11. Now, watching the Mac Mini video, which I was out running errands, I know that all the Apple stuff is going on right now, but I'm sort of buried in all these things that I need to get done. Long story, but not going to go into it. And I'm trying to watch the Mac Mini thing in breaks between running these errands and listen through the section where they mentioned Final Cut, and we heard the Mac Mini product manager talking about being able to generate captions in Final Cut Pro. And if you zoom in on the Final Cut Pro user interface that they showed, you can see that there was an option to transcribe to captions. Also, there was an option in that little menu that said add a magnetic mask. So first of all, with generate captions, this is something that especially the social media content creators have been asking for a long time because CapCut has it. Motion VFX just came out with a plugin that's part of a subscription that they are offering that does do auto captions and does it really well. I watched a video by Brad West that demonstrated it. Looked amazing. I haven't had a chance to use it yet. But now Final Cut's going to come up with their own built-in feature for Final Cut Pro, or Apple's going to come up with it, where we can generate captions. I heard on on X, that it was English only so far, so we're going to wait for them to release other languages and support other languages for that feature, but right out of the gate, it's going to support English only from what I understand. So this is huge. Now, I don't do a lot of videos where I need captions generated, but I do want captions on the shorts that I make, and on my shelf back here I've got a bunch of retro iPods that I want to make shorts about, and I want captions to be on there. It was too difficult to do it before, so I just skipped it, and it didn't really seem to be too detrimental for my video. But again, that's just sort of like a common feature in shorter content, shorter vertical content, so I really want to add that in. So for that I'm really excited. Now the magnetic mask, probably going to be something I might use more, but I haven't really used it all that much myself because it's always been a little clunky, a little difficult, although Motion VFX's M-Roto AI, from all the people I know who use it, think it does a really good job. And Dylan John made a video about the Final Cut Pro update that they teased, talking about the framework that ChatGPT was using to be able to magnetic mask objects that are moving on a video clip. So this looks like Apple is going to be adding a sort of automatic rotoscoping, automatic object isolation on a video clip, a feature that's built in. We all were a little disappointed with the scene removal mask, which this is probably a sister feature of. But if what we hope is the high-end, high-quality Apple version is going to be realized and not like the scene removal mask, which is a little clunky, this is going to be an amazing feature for people that want to mask out people in frame, put special effects behind them. They can put text behind them. They can do isolated color corrections. So those things are really exciting. And I just think Apple's ready for Final Cut Pro 11. I think we're all ready for it. And I've talked about this numerous times. They dropped the Final Cut Pro X. They dropped the Roman numeral 10 from the official name of Final Cut Pro. And I think that really was paving the way for Final Cut Pro 11. Now, why add a bunch of features to Final Cut Pro? I think one of the big things is that you have a lot of holdouts on Intel machines, whether it's the 2018 Mac Pro, the iMac Pro that was Intel based, or those last machines before the switch to M1 that people spent a lot of money on, and there hasn't been enough features added to Mac OS and the Pro apps to get those folks to switch over. Now we have Apple Intelligence coming out, which is only going to be compatible with in a really efficient way with the Apple Silicon lineup. And now Final Cut Pro, what I think is going to be Final Cut Pro 11, I have to imagine those features are only going to be compatible with Apple Silicon based computers. And pretty soon into the future, you're going to start seeing Final Cut Pro features that aren't compatible with M1 chips and eventually M2 chips. And it's going to force people like me that have an M1 Max Mac Studio and M1 Pro MacBook Pro to look at upgrading. So Apple can use Final Cut Pro and adding really amazing features to it to leverage what their ultimate goal is, running a business that's profitable by selling hardware. And granted, there's other wildly profitable aspects of their business from services and software, but hardware really is their bread and butter. So I think that's part of this as well. Coming out with what I think will be Final Cut Pro 11 is going to take a lot of those Intel folks and get them to finally trade in or sell their machines and then buy new ones. And Apple even mentioned this during the Mac Mini keynote. They talked about how much faster the M4 Pro is from the Intel-based equivalent, and I really think they were targeting those folks very explicitly to try to get them to upgrade. So we have the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit coming up in November, and I think there will probably be some kind of demo or a look at Final Cut Pro 10.9 or Final Cut Pro 11, whatever version it's going to be there, and those people are going to be free to talk on Twitter, they can't take photographs, but talk on social media and all that about what they've witnessed, and then that update most likely will come out soon after. Now my hope is that some of these features are tapping into the foundation of Apple Intelligence to be able to do what they do, to analyze audio and pull out text transcriptions, and then to analyze images in a frame and be able to create a magnetic mask that sticks with them. So what features will be coming using that foundation? Something that I've always wanted was something like the Photos app, where in the Photos app I can type in, a car, and all the pictures I have of a car will come up. I want something like that in Final Cut Pro in the browser. I also want a built-in feature that's similar to what Gling and Recut do, which is they can take a clip of A-roll like this and find all the stumbles and all that stuff and automatically edit those out. And you can set how intense Final Cut Pro does that or how loosely Final Cut Pro does that. That would be an amazing feature. So there's a lot of stuff that some things I probably haven't even thought of that would be incredible additions to Final Cut Pro. And I think this lays the groundwork for Apple to finally be able to bring some of those really magical features, those things that just feel like magic to Final Cut Pro, especially when Apple does it the Apple way. And they've had all this time to look at how Gling and Recut and DaVinci Resolve and Premiere Pro, even Motion VFX, some of these plugin makers for Final Cut Pro, how they build their software and how they build their features that are compatible with Final Cut Pro and go, we can do better. We can take what they've done, improve on it, listen to the feedback that's been getting, and improve it as well. Last thing I want to touch on is Thunderbolt 5, 120 gigabits per second. I wasn't expecting this. It came out of nowhere for me, but holy cow, what a huge upgrade. And we're seeing it first in the Mac Mini. Obviously, it's going to come to the Mac Pro, most likely the MacBook Pros, and then, of course, the Mac Studio. Hopefully this also means that there's going to be new versions of the standalone displays, the Pro Display XDR and the Studio Display, to be able to support that Thunderbolt 5 throughput. Now, with 120 gigabits per second and maybe some other features that come along with Thunderbolt 5, because it has that ability to have that kind of bandwidth, not only connecting peripherals, more monitors, external hardware for pro workflows, but how might that also help a pro workflow with a multi-editor environment? Now, I positioned this on X the other day. Is that light flickering? I think it is. That's really unfortunate. I positioned this on X the other day, and it might be a little bit of a stretch when Intel announced this feature through a hardware company called Blackjet called Thunderbolt Share. Now, you can already connect two computers with a Thunderbolt cable and be able to access the files across those computers. It's basically like accessing another Mac over an internet-based network, whether it's direct Ethernet through a switch or over Wi-Fi. And there's limitations. You can do screen sharing, there's things like that, but my hope is that Thunderbolt 5 and Thunderbolt Share allows more interconnectivity between computers, whether it's people that are running server farms, multiple editor workflows, multiple visual effects workflows, and Apple's software can finally work with that hardware capability to deliver us even more enhanced pro workflows so that we don't have to rely in Hollywood on an Avid because it has multiple editor workflows, shared storage workflows, stuff that they've had for years and years and years to make them the gold standard for post-production in the Hollywood and television system. Anyway, I digress, but this is great news. And it's awesome that Apple is giving us a sneak peek and saying something like, in an upcoming version of Final Cut Pro. We're not sitting there in the dark waiting for Apple to just drop an update seemingly out of nowhere, even though it's relatively easy to predict that Final Cut Pro updates are going to come out in the fall when new Macs are released and in the spring when new Macs are released, the Mac Studio and MacBook Air namely, even though the MacBook Air doesn't really factor with Final Cut Pro all that much. Of course, we haven't heard anything about Final Cut Pro for iPad, so I would expect some serious upgrades there. And the other app that's in the Final Cut Pro family, Final Cut Camera. I was really frustrated with the app because I can't take a picture. Now, I get it. It's used primarily for video. Final Cut Pro is a video editing app. Why would you be taking stills? Well, I use stills in my videos all the time, and it would be really great for Final Cut Camera to have all the manual controls for stills as well as video. I have to imagine Apple is going to add that feature, but they're just waiting to continue to develop the app, coincide it with iPhone stuff, and really give you a strong reason to upgrade not only your phone, but upgrade the app as well to cover all that. So big news, Final Cut Pro for desktop definitely has a 10.9 or version 11 update coming with two serious features, generate captions and magnetic mask. I assume something like that's going to be available in Final Cut Pro for iPad. And then let's see what's going to happen with the Final Cut Camera app and what enhancements are being made there. So this is really exciting, and only more good news to come as we learn about new products coming out this week, and then what's going to be coming out most likely in October or November, especially November with the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. So that's it. That's all I've got for this one. Until the next one, everyone, I'll see you all soon. Don't forget, keep chopping that broccoli, hopefully in Final Cut Pro 11.